Okay, I'm going to show you how I make binding. You'll see I used different fabrics so the binding would be scrappy. But even if you're doing all one fabric, this is still a good way to do it. When you do your invisible join at the end to join the binding and lay it flat, you're doing that at an angle, and you can see that in the other video. When you're making binding, you can make it that same way and they'll all blend in rather than having like, you know, a piece that's straight where you've joined the fabric. They'll all kind of be on the diagonal, and it looks good. It looks good on the diagonal. You can see it's just a little more aesthetically pleasing. Okay. So here we have 3 2.5-inch strips. They'll be however long you want them, depending on how much binding you need. But I'm just going to show you with short strips just to give you an idea on how to do it. Okay. Now, the way we're going to join these together, you're going to have this piece coming right side up. We're going to do this just like the binding video, the joining, the invisible join. So we have a selvage on this, and you might not be able to see this, but you can see there's a selvage on this too. So we're going to put right side up and right side down, just like this. And we aren't going to get it in the way of the selvage. So we'll sew inside the selvage, and the selvage will get cut off. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to sew from this corner to this corner, left top to bottom right, and I'll be right back. Okay, I've sewn the line. You can see it right here. Right side up and right side down. And I'm going to cut this off with an approximate 1/4 inch seam. And after you get all of them put together, usually I cut them at that time, but I'm going to just show this now step by step. I would normally cut these at the end when I'm about to iron them. Let's see if I can get this. Okay. So I'm going to cut off about 1/4, leaving a 1/4 inch. My scissors need to be sharpened. All right. Whoops. Dropped it. Sorry. Okay. So got that cut about quarter of an inch, leaving a 1/4 inch seam, and I can cut these little dog ears off right here. Cut these little ears off. Okay, and then your binding will be joined, and it's going to match the invisible binding. Now what you do when you're finished is iron these open. Iron that open so you don't have as much bulk. Reduce the bulk. So, and then you will iron it closed in half. So you'll fold all of this in half and iron it like that. Do you see it? And then you'll have your binding. All this will be ironed. I'll show you how to join the other piece. I have one more piece here. Alright, so this is the new piece. And this will be the next piece on our binding. So again, right side up and right side down. Across, leaving just a little so you can see where you're going. Oh, and this has a selvage. See the holes right there? So we don't want that in there. So, is this one? Okay, that one's fine. And again, we're gonna sew from this corner to this corner. All right, got this one sewn on. Went like this. And sewed corner to corner. I'm going to cut this off, leaving a 1/4 inch seam, and flip it over, and your binding is joined. Once you have all these together, once you've got all your strips together, and again, these are 2.5 wide. I think some people do their binding at 2 1/4, but I like to have just a little bit extra to work with, so I always do mine at 2 1/2. Plus, when you get a jelly roll, they're all cut to 2 1/2 usually, and then you don't have to recut them. So what I'm using here are just remnants of a jelly roll. All right, so you'll do all those, and then you'll cut your tails off. You'll iron those open. You'll iron the seams open. And that'll look like that. And then you will fold over and you will iron it in half. Okay, everything's ironed in half, and it's gonna look like this. So you have your joint, your binding when you've made it is diagonal. And when you finish it with the magic binding or the invisible binding or the joined binding, that's also going to be diagonal, so you won't see it. You won't be able to see where your seams are or your joins are, because they're all going to look the same. And when you're ready to bind, you will do raw edge of the binding to the edge on the front. There are plenty of ways to do this. I do this starting on the front, and also a 1/4 inch from the edge, and then I'll bring it over to the back, and then I'll hand sew it on the back. So you'll have your binding, then you sew it to the back. If you're gonna do it all by machine, you'll want to start on the back. So you would flip this to the back side, and then you would do it exactly the same way and sew it about a 1/4 inch from the edge. Line your edges up, so 1/4 inch from the edge, and then when you flip over to the front, you would then come in and sew it on the edge of the binding right here. So this would be the back, and then you would roll over. So you'd have edge to edge, and this would be sewn down. Let me get a pen. Alright, so edge to edge. And I'm going to put it in like we are sewing it, so we can flip it over and I can show you. So if we're going to machine bind the whole thing, front and back, we start on the back and we sew a 1/4 inch from the edge. And then we're going to pull this around and then bring it to the front. So this is how it would look on the front, and then you would sew this. So ideally you would want this stitch a little closer. So if you're going a 1/4 inch here, when you flip over, you want to go a little more than a 1/4 inch on the front, so you don't see the stitch from the back on the 1/4 inch. I hope that makes sense. That's a little confusing, but if you have enough material, you'll be able to fold it over enough. You'll be able to fold the binding over enough where you'd be hiding that stitch from the back. And then you would just stitch on the front. And you'd have your binding.